Welcome back, ladies and gents, to another episode of the Two PTs One podcast. I feel like we're going to need a bit more of an intro, like, Dr. Nick from The Simpsons, like, hey, everybody.
Or just some
Huh?
dramatic music in the background, like, "Da-da, welcome back."
If we could get, like, the Dr. Dre slow piano build up, that'd be, like, some good shit. So, today's topic is going to be discussing nutritional strategies. So, obviously, making diet sustainable. I think me and Myles have both covered this independently on social media a bit, but like picking out certain ways where you're going to make it easier for you to actually sustain it, but then if you go into a technique that's going to be detrimental and short term, long term, it's just going to fail you.
Yeah.
So I think it's pretty obvious to say as a big factor to start that many people that will start with a diet and lose weight, if it's a short term diet, I think 75% or more put it back on within a year.
I think it's higher. I think it's like 80 to 90.
Yeah. So it's important to realize that a diet isn't a short term fix. It's
No.
like it's designed for long term, but you can allow yourself foods within that time
Yeah.
to make it a long
I
term.
I actually particularly don't like using the word diet simply because it has the word die in it. I rather use the case of lifestyle changes or lifestyle habits because
Yeah.
if like you can get good results with a quick base diet, but for the short term, that's that. But most time or not, like Mike just said, it just rebounds and loses weight. The idea is when you're making these kind of like lifestyle changes, that it's benefiting you for the long term. You're not putting yourself in any like detrimental health issues, um, and potentially the results that you want to get from A to B. I highly doubt it. By the time you get to B, you think that right, that's it. Let's go back to A. I mean, all this was
Mm.
nice, but let's just go back over there. It's like there's no point. The idea
Yeah.
is that as well as you lose a couple of pounds, lose a little bit of body fat, the idea is you continuously learn to grow, um, and your goals might adapt and change and stuff like that. So that means your priorities will change and stuff like that as well. So the whole point of this podcast episode today is technically just giving a few of our ideas, a few kind of strategies that we think work and help to make sure you guys are getting a long and sustainable life.
Yeah. So I think for anyone that doesn't understand the why the short term doesn't work, it's basically just the fact that like your body will get used to the stress of training, the body will get used to the stress of being on a lower calorie diet. And in terms of phrases, it's called adaptive thermogenesis. So this is basically if you drop your calories so low and your body gets used to that, it basically gets used to you being on 600, 800 calories. And then when you go to pump back in normal food because you think, oh, my diet's done, my goal's achieved, your body can't physically work with the excessive calories that it's not used to, and it basically just goes straight back into weight. That's what I picked from it anyway.
Yeah, so you're right, and obviously the thermogenesis part. So technically, what happens is as you diet and you lose a considerable a load amount of weight, you've technically become a smaller human being. You've technically you've lost a lot of weight, and you don't need the same amount of calories to maintain your weight as you did when you were 10, 15 pounds heavier.
Mm.
So that means that your calorie outtake, or as you say, your calorie expenditure, is a lot less. So what most people tend to do then is that they try to bump up all the calories nice and quickly again. And obviously, because you're not burning that much straight away, you just start storing them pounds again and stuff like that. But yeah, exactly. If you're going for, and that's where quick results like that tend to not work, um, because, like I said, there's this kind of a rebound phase where your body seems to just kind of just store everything nice and back. Where if you go for a longer lasting approach, you might include a couple of breaks in there and stuff like that. Diet, there seems to be a lot better at metabolic adaptations, like Mike just said. There seems to be a lot more muscle sparing, and also a lot of like psychological effects seem to have a benefit effects.
I was going to say, you don't resent your whole life because you're living on 200 calories a meal.
You know, you can have ice
Especially
cream.
when a lot of people, especially when a lot of people don't need to.
No, like no, you don't. And I can understand for people who maybe have a date, let's say like bodybuilders or something like that, or people who dieting for an event. I can imagine the kind of the rush towards that. And if you are dieting for that specific thing, I'm not saying that's not all right. I'd say that that's perfectly fine. Go for it. But just realize when you do come out of that diet phase, that there's going to probably be a lot more control and reconstruction into that before you get yourself back to where you were originally.
Yeah,
If originally before, where if you're taking a longer or lasting approach, um, it doesn't seem to have a lot of the kind of effects of what I've just spoke about before.
yeah, because I think a lot of bodybuilders will obviously go through the phase, and their prep time will be like 4 to 6 months, pure for the fact that they want to remain as big as possible and remain keep as much muscle mass as possible. So their timing is going to be slowly reducing the food and increasing the cardio as they go. So
Yeah.
obviously they're going to get to a point where they're reducing fat as much as they can. And I think it's neglected at the fact that once the show's done, and a lot of people will tend to binge, the weight will just fly back.
Yeah,
Because
I've seen it on one scale when they're getting ready for the shows, they're dead lean, dead shredded, and then you see them like a couple of weeks later, and it's like a completely different person. It always baffles me. Okay, maybe
yeah,
not a couple of weeks, but a little bit longer than that. But in my mind, I wouldn't entirely think the results or the hard work that I've done to get to where I want to be weight wise or looks wise, I can't really see the point of doing that. And then a couple of weeks later, or months later, come
yeah,
back to where I was, or even worse. It that doesn't make sense to me.
yeah. So that's where a
Especially,
rebound would come in. So
yeah,
a rebound would basically just be like your diet would slowly increment calories down, you would just slowly increment calories up, just so your body can get back to being used to calories,
yeah.
which a lot of people neglect, and they'll be like, "Oh, I will celebrate my weight loss by having a pizza." That's not weight loss, people.
Well, that depends really. Depends on how much activity you've done in that day. Um, but yeah, another name for that of what Mike just mentioned is called reverse dieting. Now, reverse dieting is very mixed. Some people tend to go by it really strictly by slowly each week adding 50 calories or 100 calories just to get back to the maintenance or new maintenance. And there's some people who pretty enough go straight back into the maintenance. Um, Results either way have
Mm,
shown both ways have their effects and some have their negatives. Um, but that depends on the person itself, and it depends on your kind of own experience. And if you're not someone who has a kind of experience in that area, maybe the coach that you've got at the moment or the personal trainer you've got at the moment uh, can apply that kind of thing. But when I've done it with my clients, and they've gone through a dramatic kind of weight loss when they might have gone on quite low calories, I've slowly brought them back. Uh, Maybe not as slow as like 50 calories, but I've slowly each week brought them slowly back into it by 100, just so they can start getting a little bit more emphasis, just more psychological effects and stuff like that. But that's
yeah.
my opinion, and I'm sure the next person or Mike, for example, might have a different approach to it. But
No.
you can't you can't see everything in a kind of black and white thing, especially in this day and age where there seems to be new research kind of pumping out every single day, um, resulting in different results. So I say this is probably a good time, Mike, to probably talk about some of the approaches that we want to talk about today.
Because I mean, realistically, oh, I can hear myself. We could go into like all the like polio or paleo, whatever it is, and then like the carnivore diets and all these kind of options. But realistically, like me and you both know that it's going to end up ruling to one major factor,
Yes, reducing calories. So yeah, if you're someone who is following the keto diet, the paleo diet, um,
I honestly don't know much about the
oh,
diets because I just don't look into them.
all the other funny diets. Um, the ultimate end goal of it, or should I say, the ultimate kind of thing about them all is the fact that they all just reduce calories. I mean, if you take a complete macronutrient out of your diet, you're going to be somewhat easier in a calorie deficit. And that's what these things benefit. There's no other benefits to them and stuff like that. Not what I know and stuff like that. And I've never really put anyone, or have I put myself on it because I know the importance of all three macronutrients, which
Yeah,
we're not going to really get into today in this podcast because we've mentioned it before. But the that's the thing is like I think so many people now in this day and age try to put a blame on something like fat's bad, carbs are bad, protein's bad. I mean, all of them have, well, except for protein, the fats and carbohydrates have always took their turns in which is involved. But if you ate the same amount of calories in any of the three macronutrients and you went over that maintenance, you will put weight on.
yeah.
Same with vice versa if you ate under. So instead of thinking as the food that you're eating as the enemy, think of it as the fuel that you're providing your body with.
I
Especially
th-
when you're in a diet and stuff like that, you're more susceptible to feeling like fatigueness, tiredness, all that kind of stuff. You might not want to be willing to do exercises and stuff like that. It's really important to have that nutrition locked down. Like eat your carbohydrates around your exercises times. So you get a little bit of spike of insulin, spike of energy, glycogen, and you're raring to go.
I think it's just a personal neglect to your own health in the fact that like if the doctor said, okay, you're skipping this out of your diet, you need this in, you'd put it back in. But because the diet's not it, a doctor's not going to be like, okay, you need to not have any fats. I don't think you're going to go to a single doctor or nutritionist that's going to say have no fats in your diet because they're going to know how important it is to like your immune system and just general insulation for the winter. Like I'm not trying to say you need to be fat, but it depending on the country you live in, a bit of fat is good.
Yeah, but it's like that's what I mean. It's like let's talk about sex specific at the moment. So females, there's this current movement at the moment where females are trying to, somewhat try to be slim, trying to get six packs and stuff like that. And while some of that's all right and stuff like that, the levels that some women are going for it is really affecting their healths, the biological areas where things like getting pregnant, regulating hormones and stuff like that, and they really are destroying bodies. I've seen people go on very low calories where they've lost things like their periods and stuff like that. I
Mm.
just I don't see the point of getting to that stage to look good. I mean,
And suffering.
and suffering, yeah. I mean, it's it's, it's like James Smith mentioned this very well. If you didn't put weight on over Christmas, well, you did Christmas wrong. And weight, so many people focus on the weight itself, and weight will always fluctuate. For women, it'll probably fluctuate a hell of a lot more because there's a lot more hormones involved, and there's a lot more again involved as well. But looking at results, things like your measurements, your the way you look in the mirror, there are more ways to see results. But at the same time as well, like you've got to look at how you feel. If you're feeling crap, but you've got a six pack, you've got to you've got to kind of weigh them things out of what's important to you. For
Mm.
me, I know that like there's a level of point where if I get too lean, I don't enjoy life because tendency, as I've done in the past, when I've had like a low level of body fat, couldn't play the sport, couldn't go out with my mates, party or drinking stuff. I could be worried I'd be going over my calories. And it took me now to look back and say that wasn't right because I missed out on like a lot of opportunities for that. And that's where dieting, if not planned right, could go. And I think me and Mike can agree nicely on this, that the whole point of us doing these podcasts and these episodes to educate you guys isn't to lead you down that life. The idea is to live your life where you're having a healthy life, you're not missing out, and you can enjoy things.
Mm.
Like, Mike's always commenting on the fact that I seem to, whenever I'm on losing calories or something like that, I always seem to be eating more than I seem to be or something like that. Because
I mean,
I
that
love
is you playing eating Doritos or playing in the gulag, but that's a different story.
exactly. I love my food and stuff like
Like,
that. So
I'm currently in a deficit, and I will literally have a salad, and then my post-workout meal will be oats whey and Pop Tarts, purely for the fact that it's good. It's carbs. I don't care about the sugar, but it still fits into my diet. Like, you can have a diet where you eat food you want.
I
It's
know that.
amazing.
I just like I could hear the cries of people like, please
What?
tell me.
What is this witchcraft?
This is like, what is madness? But we're gonna start kind of rambling there and tell you guys about some of these kind of approaches that we maybe implemented to our clients or ourselves that matter. So I'll introduce the first one, and this is the kind of one that's probably more well known, and it's the introduction of refeed days and diet breaks. Now, what they technically are is what they sound. They are a little bit of breaks from your diets, and there's no magic pill. They're not going to make you lose more weight and stuff like that. But what they are going to technically do um, is put you back to somewhat max level of leptin. So people who don't know, leptin is your kind of it's kind of the hormone that kind of regulates hunger. So it tell you when you're full. Gremlin's the one that is your hunger hormone. So when you're hungry, that's when that's high. Leptin is when you're full.
Yes, satiety.
Satiety, that's the word I was looking for. Maximizes that. Gives obviously, it lets you provide more glycogen in the storage to let you store them up because you're potentially going to be having a higher day of carbohydrates. And it's going to have a little bit of psychological benefits as well that will help you increase things like your NEAT. So the strategy kind of goes is we'll talk about refeed first, where you will particularly pick one day in the week where you'll go back to your maintenance. And your maintenance, you'll increase the difference between the daily foods that you're on at the moment, your maintenance, primarily with carbohydrates, just to get the effects I've just mentioned about before. Now, a diet break is that, but for 1 or 2 weeks. And there's a lot more research that has been done on diet breaks than has been on refeed days. And you might be asking now, it's like, well, what's the point of doing a diet break? Well, from the top of my head, there's studies that have been done where they got, they did 32 obese men. 16 of them um, went on straight diets. So I think it was like 33% of their maintenance calories. And another 16 of them went on these controlled diet breaks. What they found out was after the diet had ended, um, that the people who did the diet breaks had more fat loss and a higher metabolic adaptation. Now, the only problem with diet breaks is if you use them in your diets, they tend to make the diet last longer.
Yeah, because you're not hating life.
Yeah, exactly. So the people who were on the continuously dieted for, I believe it was 16 weeks. And then the people who did the diet breaks ended up dieting for 30 weeks. And that was to get the total net calories expenditure. Same with both. And they found out as well afterwards that after the diet ended, so when they went back onto the maintenance, and this is what we've talked about as well already in this podcast, the people who carried on doing the diet breaks saw more fat loss than the previous two, where the other group tend to put more weight on. So that's just one research, and I recommend if you go and have a look at that research, make sure you have a look at 2 or 3 others because you don't want to always go with one paper, but that one that just came to mind.
Yeah.
but it shows in the fact that if you've got the time to do it, maybe implementing these kind of diet breaks are somewhat beneficial to long-lasting results. I mean, I've just came off one myself now, because just getting tired all the time. Didn't feel like myself, and I knew that having a little bit of a break for diet, because I've been dieting, I believe 8 weeks before, probably before that, maybe a little bit longer. And now I've come off of it, feel kind of back to my normal ways. Seems to be annoying other people around me at the moment, so I know I'm back to my normal ways again. But it's helped me a lot. Did my weight go up again? Yeah, a little bit, just because I've got a little bit more carbohydrates in my system, so I'm going to store more water weight. But now I'm back off it. The weight's starting to plateau again. Not plateau. Down go again. So that's a very interesting concept to have a look at.
Because I mean, I'm going to bring up mine, like my diet plan at the minute, but I think it's important to realize at first, like, if you're in an energetic lifestyle or you're moving more, what your maintenance could be and your movement patterns could actually be dropping you into a deficit itself. So obviously, this is why you can have certain people that are the exact same weight as you, do the same job, but they spend more time moving, so they're allowed more calories purely for the fact that they're allowing themselves more room.
Yeah.
I think me and Miles discussed this a little bit before the podcast started, and it's a fact of like, obviously, if you've got protein targets to hit, you're more likely to hit them if you've got more calories overall to hit them within. And also the fact that depending on your choices of foods, the macronutrient availability that you're going to provide yourself is going to be a lot better. And that's going to be generally better for health, regardless. So I think it's understanding that moving more isn't just for the fact of weight loss as well. Obviously, it allows more food, but the sheer help that it'll cause to you moving, your digestion will get better, like your general health will get better, cardiovascular. You move more, oxygen can pump more, your body just feels a lot better with itself.
I think people underestimate the power of even walking.
Mm.
I know it's very boring, as unfortunately you hear quite a lot, Mike. I don't like my walking and stuff like that. I'd rather do a 5K of a run than do steps. But making sure you get your movement in, so your 10,000 steps a day, if that's a general goal and stuff like that. I know we're quite limited due to where we are in time right now, but it doesn't stop you the fact that you could go and have a walk around the park or local park
Mm.
and stuff like that, or do daft things like walk up your stairs twice. It's doing the simple things like that is actually the biggest way you can affect how much food you take. So, so the amount of calories that you burn. So this is the things that burn your calories. You've obviously got the biggest aspect, which is your BMR, your basal metabolic rate. The second from that, which is about 30% of how much calories you burn, is your NEAT, so non-exercise energy expenditure. And that is the biggest component of the things that we can affect. So you're walking, you somewhat things like your itching of your head. It's not things like going to the gym and stuff like that. It's anything that wouldn't be classed as physical activity.
Yeah.
And there's two
Like
other.
me scruffing my beard.
Yeah, exactly. Or me grabbing this bloody tissue at the moment because I feel like I'm being cheated at the fact that it's not sunny and I'm still suffering with hay fever. It's just not fair. But back to the point.
Mm.
Um, and the two other components, which roughly take about 10% each themselves, one of them is thermal effective feeding, so thermal effective food, which technically means that your body's way of burning calories to break down the food that you've just ate and store that into nutrition or energy.
Just made me think V Shred then and like, oh my god, guys, you're eating the food that are right for your body.
We'll leave that completely different rigor mode. And then obviously after that is your activities, so your gym sessions and stuff like that. So when you look at it in that component, you can see that exercise in itself, while it's not useless, there's a ton of benefits of doing weight training and stuff like that, is a very small component. So getting things like your steps and all that is a far better and more better strategy than focusing on how many sessions you get in within a week and stuff like that. Now, the benefit of obviously weight training is the fact that you can increase your muscle mass. And if you increase your muscle mass, then your body has a um, bigger task of obviously, bigger task. It got lost with sentence as usual. But you're technically bigger, so you need more of an energy requirement to keep them muscles, but also as well, when you have larger muscles and all that, and you're moving, you require more energy to move. There we go. Finally got that sentence out. And knowing that, you can plan ahead. And if you know that on days that maybe you're not getting in your steps and stuff like that, you're sitting down and do your desk jobs and stuff like that, that could be also a reason why you're not losing weight. But then the calories are the exact same, nothing really changed. You still exercise and stuff like that. So that could be a major component. So obviously the fact that because we're seated down a lot more people expenditure has massively dropped. So you might be on a lot less calories than you think you need to be on. So you need to take that into consideration.
If you want more food, you've got to earn it.
Exactly. You've got to move for it, baby.
But yeah, I think for me at the minute, like back to the original conversation, mine is intermittent fasting at the minute. So I will not eat now out of the window of probably either 12 to 6 or 12 to 8, depending on how work is at the minute. So basically, this will eliminate breakfast and any late night feeding. And obviously, my digestion is going to be running a lot better. Fat oxidation within the body itself is going to be a lot better. And it makes me generally enjoy food a bit more. Because I'm going to be eating the same amount of calories to get in a deficit within eating 12 hours a day or 8 hours a day, regardless. But the factor is, if I want to make better choices or more relaxed choices within that time, I can.
Yeah.
You just need to be. I think the only thing you need to be a bit careful of is making smart protein choices to keep you with the actual protein itself. So obviously, if you're having just 2 meals a day, you're not going to be having enough. So like for me
Well,
at
it
the minute,
depends. If you could get that many much in your protein, that's fine. But yeah, intermittent fasting it's quite a useful tool. It's not if you're looking at things like increases your metabolic rate or the fasting benefits of it. From the research, what I've seen, there really isn't. The idea is the fact that you're technically what you're doing is you're shortening your eating window. Obviously, if you're shortening your eating window, there's a less opportunity to eat. That's why if people sleep more as well, they tend to have better diet controls as well. Not only because obviously if you sleep less, you have a little bit more of an uprising to eat more, but the fact that you're technically decreasing the fact of your eating window. And if you, this is the point where we said you can enjoy some of the foods that you like. If you're eating shorter windows, that particularly means that the meals that you have
can be
will
bigger.
have a larger calorie amount. Yeah, so you can enjoy the pizzas and stuff like that and still lose weight as long as obviously you've got the same calorie deficit that you had before,
Mm.
still lose weight.
I
There's
think
obviously
just to, oh,
go on.
I think no, just to pull back into that sleep thing a bit. I think I mentioned digestion. It's purely for the fact that obviously, when it starts to go dark and your body starts to respond and try and get into that sleep state, if your body's not running with a belly full of food, it's going to be shutting down and relaxing a lot easier and a lot sooner and get you in a better position for bed. And I think a lot of people neglect the fact that like your body's got to work hard to digest food and like transport it everywhere. And if it's sitting there and it's just got a load of food, that's why a lot of food will sit on you more at night. Because when it starts to go dark and the body's got signals, and I'm going to use the fancy term that you might not know, zeitgebers. So it's basically the cues that the body receives to be like, okay, it's getting dark, or okay, it's time for me to nearly go to bed. This is when the body will start shutting down like the thyroid systems and all the metabolic systems in the body, just so it gets into a more relaxed state. So having food then, it's going to be like, what's going on? I don't know
Ladies,
what to do.
ladies and gentlemen, we have a new title for this podcast. It's Diet Approaches plus Mike's way of telling you how to sleep more. But yeah, very much in that sense. And people who have tend to do intermittent fasting have found obviously better sleep just due to the fact of what Mike just said. If you're having a lot of food kind of late, if you're having that gap, increasing that gap, sorry, of when you digest your food to your sleep, you're going to find yourself sleeping a little bit better. But from my understanding, they're the kind of only benefits that I've had. Stuff like that. There's not really that much with it. So if you're
I've
going to
got a
use
couple
intermittent
more.
fasting, please don't use it as a tool to, like I mentioned before, to increase your metabolic rate. Just don't. Just use it as a tool
That
to
doesn't work.
just enjoy a little bit of food. Now, another one that I tend to use is a low carb, high carb day. So I'll explain that a little bit better. So it's technically kind of said on the days that let's say you're seated down more, or you're not gonna have that much physical activity, whether that's walking and stuff like that. Actually, no, well, not walking, but more like exercises wise, like your weight training and stuff like that. You could potentially eat a lower carbohydrate day because you know you're not going to be using that as fuel for energy storage. This is quite very much known in sport industry. So I know a lot of like professional footballers, they tend to use a diet, especially when they're trying to cut weight, because then they can allow to put themselves in a bit more of a deficit, but then not affect their performance. And then obviously on the flip side, if you've got quite a lot of activity going on, you've got a heavyweight training session day, you've got preseason training, whatever that kind of thing, or 5K, you book up your carbohydrates, and in all of this, you'll you'll create a bigger deficit from that. And that's a good kind of way of obviously grading as well if you want to make a little bit more of a deficit going on. But in all the diet approaches that we mentioned, there's no benefits on MMR other than to create a bigger deficit, and that is the main point of a diet. So the whole point of strategizing for success. And that's the point of these kind of diet things and stuff like that. Now, when you're coming back off the diet, you need to make sure that you've got that kind of same approach, like we mentioned before, with the reverse dieting and stuff like that. And then the best thing as well is like you don't always want to be living on a diet. There's going to be times where you're going to be either in your maintenance, or you're going to want to put yourself in a surplus, especially if you're trying to like muscle build to optimize the kind of protein synthesis and all that. You want to sometimes enjoy life when you're on holiday. Go and eat a little bit more food. I mean, like, it's the reason why you try to get yourself in that bikini in the first place, is to be a little bit more comfortable in your life, be happy with yourself, and enjoy life. And I think when you decide to come off that diet, or you're thinking about going on the diet, you should have that in mind. What is the end goal? What is that going to make me happy? And if you think of it like that, I think some of the stuff that me and Mike have spoke about today will definitely help in that regards. So, is there anything you want to put onto that, Mike?
No, I think obviously if you need any help and support in terms of figuring out where you are to get in a deficit, just pop me a message. Pop me in.
Whoa, ladies and gentlemen,
Pop me a message of Myles.
We have a one-man show. We've shown Mike his true colours, and that is black and dark.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Pop me a message of Myles. Me and Myles a message, and basically we'll help. No worries. And I think it's just understanding that you don't need to be suffering for a diet. Like Myles says, it's got dye in it. That's never good.
Yeah.
And understanding that you can manipulate it around your lifestyle and your training quite well and quite easy, and make it sustainable.
Yeah.
And don't fall into the trap that you have to look like the Instagram models that are spamming the same image they posted on 2 years ago of them looking thin, but now because they're actually eating normal food again and actually enjoying their life, they're not in a position they used to be. And don't use crap products.
Don't use skinny tea.
Yeah.
Please, for the love of God, please don't use skinny tea.
Get
But
whole, get whole foods in, get your nutrients in. Bish
yeah,
bash bosh.
just eat like a human being. I
Yeah.
mean, that's what we are and stuff. I mean, it's it's simple. It's it's simple, but it's not simple. There's a lot of things thrown into the mix of it, and there's a lot of considerations you need to make. But it doesn't need to be as complicated as most people make it out to be.
No way.
No. And on that, ladies and gentlemen, I think I will end the podcast on there. Um, Hope you guys have taken away quite a bit from this episode. I know it's quite short from our last couple of episodes, actually. But the idea is short and simple. It's nothing really that much about it. It's just getting to the point and sticking with the points to make sure that you guys are getting long lasting results. But,
Yeah.
ladies and gentlemen, if you've enjoyed this podcast and you're watching it on YouTube, make sure you give it a like, subscribe to the channel. If you guys are listening to an audio version, whether that's on Spotify or Apple Music, make sure to give it a 5 star if it has that and share it with your friends. But as always, ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you in the next episode. Peace.
Boosh.
Legendary.